hey there, I'm happy that you've made it this far. You know, a lot of people do drop off before they complete the whole video series. And so welcome back. I hope that this has been helpful for you so far. I want to encourage you, lean in, continue to be intentional, build that traction. You don't have to do 90 days of sobriety. You just have to do today, and keep it simple. Get through today and keep processing. And you're gonna just remind yourself, it is one day at a time. And that's one of the, AA and recovery has so many good sayings, but one day at a time, take it easy and take it today, not a whole bunch of days, but just let's get through today. So today we're going to be talking about a pretty impactful subject. We're kind of shifting towards the central part of our recovery life now healing package, and that is into the area of our past. We can't look forward until we look back. And, it's often what has happened in our past that actually sets us up for the future. And so here in a few weeks, we're going to be talking about our purpose. We're going to be talking about looking forward. But right now, it's important that we look back. And because looking back helps us to know who we are, it also helps us to know where we are. And it really gives us that orientation of the direction that we're headed. And so, Michael Jr. Michael Jr. is a cool comedian. If you haven't seen his stuff, check him out on YouTube. But he talks a lot about, he's mentioned that the way he creates a joke, the way anybody writes a joke, is that they tell a story of people moving in a single direction. You get your audience moving in a certain direction, and then you bring a punchline or you bring a twist. And that twist brings new revelation that causes laughter, causes joy, it causes delight. And so, if I think about any joke, typically that's the way it goes. We get people moving in a certain direction. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side, right? Like there's that little twist. And even though that's a really not a very exciting joke, that twist makes you go, ha ha, right? Like, oh, okay, duh. And I think of recovery as that twist. I call it the twist of redemption. It's a twist that does cause delight. It does cause joy. And looking back may not be a very joyful activity for you, but the more difficult it is for you, probably the more fruitful it will be for you. And so my invitation is just as with everything else, dive in with both feet. You're doing some good work. You've done some good work. Keep up the good work. Stay on top of your 5 C's, your 5 practices rather, and all of that. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the past. And today, one of your assignments is going to be to write out a timeline of the 10 most traumatic events in your history, especially in your childhood. And I'm thinking, before 16, 17, 18 years old, like kind of when you were a young teenager or a child, because usually we see and find the roots of our addiction are often found before we're 12. And, if I was to sit down with you personally, and I love to do this, if we have that opportunity, and do an intercultural wheel. And in that exercise, we find out kind of where did my need to numb my pain come from? And that's an interesting question too. Maybe that's something that you jot down and kind of think over and process. Where did my need to medicate my pain come from? Where did my need to escape come from? And so trauma is not always the thing that happened to us, but it's more the thing that happened in us. And that's not a direct quote from Gabor Mate, but that's one thing that he really communicates well in some of the work that he does is, trauma, bad things can happen to us. And we should never compare my trauma to his trauma, to her trauma. All of us are, we've experienced painful things, and many of us are impacted more deeply by certain things than other things or whatever, right? So we don't get to compare, but we do get to look at our trauma, look at our history, and have the opportunity to grieve. Trauma isn't just what happened to us. And one thing that really causes trauma as well, like I said, it's really what happens inside of us. And oftentimes what I've found with people, when I was first trying to do recovery, somebody told me, hey, do a timeline just like I asked you to do just now. And I said, I don't really have much trauma in my history. I mean, I could think of 2 or 3 things, but, you know, they happened to my sister, not to me. You know, it was whatever, right? The reality was I couldn't see my childhood well. I couldn't see, and sometimes maybe even asking a spouse or a sibling about some of the things that you experience might be really helpful, especially if you have little memory or if you have difficulty engaging the emotion of your childhood. And so, but I do want you to kind of take some time, sit down, think about it, maybe even grab a photo, see if you can find or talk to a relative, get a photo of yourself when you were 5, get a photo of yourself when you were a young person, right? And kind of look at that and notice what feelings come up for you. Oftentimes people find that feelings really arise and memories come up. Maybe you need to go, it can be helpful to drive down, if you have that opportunity, drive down the street you used to live on and look at the house and go, oh, that's the house I used to live at. And, take a look at it as much as is possible, and don't do anything illegal. But, that gives an opportunity for your brain to kind of bring up some more recall. And as you pull on it, you'll find that your memories begin to come a little bit more robustly. So trauma, I think of trauma oftentimes, this probably isn't the best description, but it does help us to understand. A lot of times we think of big T traumas and little T traumas. Big T traumas like war, natural disaster, somebody beat us, somebody molested us, right? Like those kind of things. Everybody kind of universally goes, whoa, that's a big T trauma. You should be traumatized by that, right? But then there's also what we call small T traumas, which may or may not be as impactful. Not everybody goes, whoa, your dad said this, or you were bullied by this person. Was that a big T? Was that really traumatizing to you? And the reality is, other people don't get to say what's traumatizing. You get to decide what was impactful for you. And if there's some emotion that arises around those things, or if you notice like, whoa, I didn't feel great about that and what happened there, that's something to pay attention to. Make sure you put it on your timeline. And you can have more than 10 things on there if you would like to, but I think you should have at least 10. Pay attention to your own responses. If you're guarded about something, that may indicate that there is some work to do around that wound. And oftentimes I look at these things as wounds. They're splinters underneath the skin that maybe have been buried there for 10 years. And we go, nah, I don't want to dig at it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to. But the reality is there's some exquisite pain. And for us to dive into it is painful, can be painful, but it often can be very healing for us to go in there, pull out the chunk of wood that's in there, the garbage that's in there, drain the wound so that it can heal. And that's really what the process of grief is. That's what the process of digging up. Why dig up the past? This is one of the reasons why we're like, yeah, oftentimes we're focused on fixing the addiction over here, but the root of it is way down over here in the pain of our past. So our body, our nervous system, it understands that. And oftentimes our need for our addiction is based out of the nervous system's need to regulate itself and fix itself, because our nervous system remembers that pain back there, even if our mind minimizes it. And so there's a myth out there, and I so totally believed this. I had a therapist, great guy, trying to help me with my addiction. And he's like, John, write out your emotional timeline, write out your list of traumas, write out some other things. And I come back and I go, there wasn't much there. No, it's not. I'm all healed of all that stuff, but I still had an addiction. See, that was the oxymoron, right? Like I'm going, I've got this painful thing over here that's wrecking my life and my marriage, but there ain't nothing to look at over here. And the reality is, if there's fruit, there's got to be a root. And so, we've got to find that connection, find that root so that we can deal with it and drain the pain. That way the fruit can change and be good and healthy fruit. But we've got to call it what it is. There is a problem. And the reality is, we can chop off the fruit all we want to. And a lot of what we do in addiction is we are chopping off fruit, right? We're in addiction recovery. I mean, we are chopping off the fruit. We are trying to get the fruit under control, because it's hard for our work on the root to be dealt with and effective if this is out of control over here and we're inebriated, right? But if we're running to pleasure, we're running from pain, there's an obvious reason for that. So yeah, draw up a list of 10 trauma experiences or painful experiences from your childhood and teen years. And depending on your age, some of you might be in your 20s, some of you might be in your 70s, 80s, I don't know. But go ahead and draw up a list from your adulthood if you've got it. That would be interesting to take a look at and begin to see, try to notice, are there any patterns in that process? And we can take a look at that. So take it to your counselor, take it to your coach, and we'll walk you through that. So some questions that kind of go with that may help to stir some things up. And I hope you already have a piece of paper out. You're already kind of jotting down some of these questions, because this is important work. But one question is like, when did you feel scared? When were some times you really felt fearful? Was there any times that you felt rejected or powerless? I can't fix this problem. Were there times that you felt unattended to or unseen? That's huge, right? Adam Young does have some podcasts on this if you're wanting to dig deeper into this. He does a lot of the story work that we do as well. And, and he talks about the big 6 needs. Take a look at his podcast, and he has a downloadable sheet on the big 6. Things that we need as a child that were often the food found the table, we were warm and clothed and all that stuff, but there were a lot of emotional needs that didn't get met. And so, did we have our parents' eyes? Did they pay attention to us? Did they, was our heart nurtured? Were we heard? Those are big questions. And when did you notice maybe that you weren't heard as a child, that you weren't paid attention to as a kid? Those are important things to pay attention to. Is there something that still stings or shapes your sense of identity? And just, the point is, if you feel something, if you think of something, put it on the list. And, and with your counselor or coach, we can kind of go over that with you and see what might some of those little breadcrumbs do help us to find that root. This isn't to blame anyone. It's not about blaming our parents, but it is important to name the things that have happened and to begin to grieve those things, right? To grieve the loss that we experienced in our childhood is so powerful. That awareness of naming it helps us to begin to heal. During this process, I also want to invite you to make sure that you're caring well for yourself. Sometimes it's good to take a bath, take a walk, take some time to be kind to you, because this topic is not easy to dive into. It's some heavyweight stuff. So take some deep breaths, ground yourself, and reach out to a trusted person or counselor if this is overly activating for you. Be gentle to yourself. A lot of times, as people who struggle with addiction, myself included, it's easy to be hard on ourselves. Buck up, get it together, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's not the spirit with which we want to do any of our work with this, but in a spirit of kindness and care, and and kind of a nurturing attitude towards yourself, because you're important and you are precious and you are good. And for you to be able to see that is important. And I think a lot of this work of acknowledging the trauma that has happened to us helps us to begin to see our goodness, to see our beauty, to see how brave we were. And so I hope that, we can talk more about that as we process it together in person or in group. But for now, take some time and for yourself, and do some things that are calming for you. Listening to some music, journaling. Those are a few different ideas. We don't want you to relive the trauma, but to release it safely. So today, this is a bit of a heavy topic. It can be challenging to go there. And some people, when we bring up this topic, they go, you know what? Peace out, baby. I'm done. I do not want to go there. That stuff is too painful to dig into. It's too difficult, and I get it. It can be extremely painful. And oftentimes, if we don't remember a lot of stuff, that might be because there's massive stuff there that we don't want to remember. that our brain says, it's not safe to go there. And so have some kindness with yourself, be patient. But my other encouragement is to begin to, as you're willing, open that up a little bit and take a look and see what's going on. And we can do that together. I want to remind you, you're not your trauma. You are not your addiction. That's not your identity. That's not who you are. You are a child of God. You are a human being. You are deeply loved by God. And I think you're probably deeply loved by your community, whether you see and sense that or not. I think it's important to name that. And, you are a person in process, and there is real hope and healing available for you. And so my encouragement is continue to lean in to this good work. It's not easy, but it is progressing, and you are making progress. Whether you've relapsed or not, whether you've been perfect in your daily practices or not, nobody's going to hit it perfect all the way through the program, typically. And so, and the encouragement is to continue to lean in, continue to do the work as best as you can. And we're going to peel this onion, and it might be a layer today and a layer tomorrow, but we're getting there. We're making good progress. So keep up the good work and press forward.